The first time the man caught the favor of the courtesan Sugar, he never expected that he would not only fall asleep and waste the entire night, but also suffer the shame of losing control of himself. To his surprise, Sugar did not show even the slightest hint of disgust. She simply remained calm and insisted that he take off his trousers. He had no choice but to obey like a timid newlywed bride. He watched as Sugar draped his trousers by the fireplace to dry, then poured water into a basin. William realized what she was about to do, and felt even more ashamed, but Sugar left no room for refusal and told him to lie down.
All will soon be set to rights.
She wrung out a towel and gently, carefully wiped away the stains from his body, as he watched the dazzling courtesan, who was usually so radiant, personally tending to him. Both William's body and mind were filled with immense pleasure. Sugar's true value lay in the fact that she could provide emotional comfort to every client. When everything was over, William apologized for having wasted too much of her time. Sugar not only appeared completely unconcerned, but also sincerely praised him for being interesting. Even after stepping out of Sugar's house, William remained immersed in the sweetness of her tenderness. What he did not know was that the moment he walked out the door, Sugar immediately stripped off the bed sheets and covers, and scrubbed her hands so hard as if she wanted to peel off a layer of skin. But no matter how much she resisted, this life of receiving and sending off men was her destiny. Her mother was a madam who made a living this way, so she had already been pushed onto this path while still at an innocent age. This was London in the Victorian era. To raise her value, Sugar's mother deliberately spent money to give her an extensive education in literature. Knowledge awakened her sense of kindness and shame, yet it did not show her a way out. Her friend had been brutally abused by two men and was left barely alive.
Tomorrow will be cold meat. They'll toss me in the river. Eels will eat out my eyes. No one will know I ever lived.
I'll know.
Sugar remained painfully clear-minded in her despair, and her only outlet for emotion was pen and paper. Every man who had ever hurt them would be cruelly killed in her novels. Yet this method could only bring her temporary peace, and could never offer true salvation. At the same time, William returned home in high spirits, only to be greeted by chaos. His wife had become increasingly unstable over the past few years. She not only refused his touch,
Don't touch me.
but also often humiliated him in front of relatives and friends. His father could not understand him either, and only urged him to review the company's accounts.
I have tried. I do not have a flair for business. I am not like you.
He suggested that his father might as well sell the family perfume factory and invest everything into his writing career, promising returns several times greater than the factory. His father could not comprehend where William's confidence came from. As someone who had not produced a single work dared to speak so boldly, he decided to cut off William's allowance and let him experience the harsh realities of the world. Sure enough, William was soon overwhelmed by a pile of bills, and his writing hit a bottleneck with no progress at all. In his frustration and restlessness, he once again thought of the pleasure Sugar had brought him, so he stole his wife's jeweled bracelet and knocked on Sugar's door again. As their interactions deepened, he discovered that Sugar was truly a hidden gem. When they spoke of romance and poetry, they were completely in sync. Whether it was ancient literary masters or rising modern writers, Sugar could recite their works effortlessly. The classic lines she quoted on a whim perfectly matched his taste.
The world rolls round forever like a mill. It grinds out life and death and good and ill. It has no purpose.
He felt that she was not a courtesan at all, but a soulmate tailor-made just for him. When they spoke of dreams, Sugar was also careful to preserve his dignity, and expressed at just the right moment how much she wished to read his literary works. But he had no published works at all, so he could only respond politely that writing was not his only profession. Sugar said, "A man like you who remains curious about the world, who is both knowledgeable and broad-minded, how could you ever be confined to a single profession? You are simply holding on to your inner persistence and innocence, while adapting to everything without losing yourself."
All turns to art in the artist's hand.
Sugar's flattery struck directly at his deepest insecurities, and suddenly he had an epiphany. Perhaps his dreams and the family business were not incompatible after all.
All turns to art in an artist's hands.
He began to actively involve himself in managing the family business, though his father remained skeptical of his change. He confidently declared that everything was the will of heaven, and that he would prove himself. Through relentless effort and diligence, he quickly mastered the company's management and operations, earning his father's admiration. She was only 19 years old, yet had already spent 6 years in this line of work, and she longed every moment to escape this living hell. But she truly did not know how to break free from her mother's control. until this man brought a new possibility into her life. He slammed a check down in front of Sugar's mother.
Will you consider it? Exclusive patronage of Sugar by me.
No.
Her mother loved money, but was unwilling to easily give up Sugar, her most valuable source of income. William understood her bargaining mindset and raised the price without hesitation. The offer had already reached an astonishing level, and seeing the other party clearly tempted yet still unwilling to agree, he suggested letting Sugar make the decision herself. The choice was obviously not difficult, and since the man had a gentle temperament with no strange habits, Sugar quickly made up her mind.
I'm willing.
She no longer had to entertain clients in dim and filthy taverns, and only needed to wait at home for William's arrival. Although she was still serving someone, she felt deeply content. However, just as she began to take pride in this life, William suddenly disappeared for an entire week. Her shrewd mother immediately brought up the nightmare that had begun 6 years ago, like a vulture circling a corpse.
Do you remember the game we used to play when you were a baby? On the coldest winter night, I'd creep into your room while you were sleeping, all cuddled up in your blanket, and I'd pull it off. Do you remember? And I'd say, that's what God does.
She understood the hint, and knew that once William stopped coming, her mother would not hesitate to force her back into receiving clients, having already tasted a slightly better life. Even the thought of returning to her old routine filled her with fear. She knew that the only way to avoid repeating the past was to hold tightly onto William, so she followed the address she had secretly written down and went to find him at his home. It was a world of high society that Sugar had never set foot in before. The houses were grand, the streets were clean, and William's residence was extravagantly luxurious beyond imagination. Only then did Sugar realize just how wealthy the man who had taken her in truly was.
My God, William Rackham. You'll keep me better than you do now.
With such a rich patron, her mother's threats suddenly seemed insignificant. She examined William's wealth and began to calculate how she could persuade him to help her escape her suffering. Suddenly she saw a woman standing by the window, pale-faced and obsessive in expression, who then excitedly waved at her. Sugar responded instinctively, and with a vague guess about the woman's identity, she fled in panic. What she did not know was that the wings on her back made the woman mistake her for an angel sent to save her. This dazed and unbalanced woman was indeed William's wife, Agnes. For several years, her behavior had been abnormal. She could not handle stimulation, and she rejected her husband's touch. At first, William could still care for her patiently, but even with a doctor visiting weekly, there was no improvement. He gradually became unable to endure such a chaotic life, and Sugar became the one who eased his burdens. Sugar always understood all of his emotions and gave the most appropriate responses. Because she had seen his wife instead of him, Sugar was left uncertain about what to do. Fortunately, William reappeared a few days later. As he had only been away on business, Sugar did everything she could to please him, then cautiously suggested that they should have a private place where they would not be disturbed. What she meant was that she hoped William would give her a house, believing that owning property would allow her to completely break free from her mother. She did not expect this request to anger William.
Don't say that.
No matter how affectionate he seemed during their time together, this man had never truly regarded her as important. She realized she had overestimated herself and apologized to her patron in panic.
William, forgive me. I was joking.
Well, I wish you wouldn't.
As the door slammed shut, Sugar despaired. Thinking she had ruined everything, she waited anxiously for 2 days, and finally William came to see her again. She dressed carefully, hoping to perform well and keep his affection, but to her surprise, he did not even come upstairs.
He wants you to come down.
Her heart leapt into her throat, as she did not know what kind of judgment awaited her. William silently led her onto a carriage. During the 2 days they had not met, he had briefly returned to his family, only to find that Agnes's condition had worsened again. She had lost control of her behavior and even began experiencing hallucinations.
I have a guardian angel. Yeah, I waved to her and she waved back.
William found himself unable to eat, as Agnes's long-term instability had cast a psychological shadow over him as well. When he instinctively avoided her episodes, he suddenly realized that Sugar was no longer just a woman from the streets in his heart, and that he had become dependent on her gentle comfort. So he transferred a property in the same wealthy district into Sugar's name.
This is yours. The bank will send you an allowance. First payment is here. You will be independent.
Overwhelmed with joy, Sugar burst into tears, as the surprise came so suddenly that she could hardly believe it. Fortunately, The tangible proof in her hands told her that everything was real, and she had finally escaped the fate that once bound her. The next day, she returned to pack her belongings, which were in fact only a few books and manuscripts. She looked around the place where she had grown up, her emotions tangled and complex. The only thing she couldn't bear to part with was the young servant who had always cared for her wholeheartedly. At the moment of parting, her mother suddenly thought of speaking about family affection with Sugar. This daughter, whom she had regarded as a burden since pregnancy, might one day truly become successful.
19 years since we embarked on this life together.
6 since you tiptoed to my room and told me there was a gentleman come to keep me warm.
She knew that saying more was useless, and Sugar turned away with a bitter sense of irony, as if the bond between mother and daughter ended here for this lifetime. A child without parental love must live cautiously even if surrounded by material comfort.
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm bad.
It was not strange for a child to wet the bed, yet the only daughter of a perfume tycoon timidly apologized for it. This made Sugar, on her first day as a governess, feel confused. She helped the girl change out of her soaked nightclothes, and discovered that the skin between her legs had already become red and ulcerated.
Slow down there.
Sugar understood that it was caused by lying in damp sheets for too long, and asked whether the previous governess had prepared any ointment.
Well, I'll get you some.
It was obvious that the former governess had shown no care for this child, otherwise she would not have described her that way during the handover.
She could be quite the little actress.
To make things easier for herself, she had harshly suppressed the child's natural instincts. She forbade Sophie from playing games, and did not allow her to play with toys. The only doll was locked away in a box, simply because the smelly old toy was deemed unfit for a clean room. The reason she dared to treat her this way was the neglect of her parents. After all, Sophie's father could not even remember his only daughter's birthday. As a child who had also grown up without love, Sugar felt sympathy for this little girl, because she had once stood in the rain herself. She wanted to hold an umbrella for Sophie. She asked Sophie to take out the doll that had been locked in the box.
Well, Miss Cleaver's gone now. I should like him to join us for our lessons.
Then, in the middle of the night, she entered Sophie's room and helped the girl go to the toilet.
Trust me.
So the next morning, Sophie woke up on clean sheets for the first time.
Sophie. Good girl.
Thank you.
Such a simple act turned the child's cloudy sky into sunshine. Yet no matter how devoted Sugar was in caring for Sophie, it could not conceal the fact that she was also the lover of Sophie's father. It was not because William cherished her so deeply that he kept her close. It was because he could not manage the chaos in his household, and had no choice but to rely on Sugar's help. Sugar was well aware of his intentions, but she also wanted to gain a respectable job and completely leave behind her past. So she cut her hair into a strict and proper style, then changed into dark dresses, and willingly moved from a spacious residence into the narrow attic of William's house. However, once she stepped into this mansion, she could not avoid another woman, William's unstable wife, Agnes. That night, Sugar was awakened from her sleep and joined the search for the missing mistress in the middle of a snowy night. They searched every corner of the estate, and Sugar was the first to find her footprints in the snow. Agnes was covered in mud, her expression filled with despair, but the moment she saw Sugar, hope lit up in her eyes again. Because Sugar had once saved her, she firmly believed that Sugar was an angel sent by God to rescue her. But Sugar could barely protect herself, and could only soothe her emotions for the moment.
I will help you.
When?
Soon.
Agnes was in terrible condition and had to be treated for her injuries first. After bandaging her wounds, the doctor administered a heavy dose of sedatives to ensure she had no energy to get out of bed day or night. The reason she had run out into the snow that night was because she had buried her old diary in the mud. She had only intended to use this act to say goodbye to her past, but her husband, who did not understand her, condemned it as madness, which drove her into despair and caused her to lose control. After this incident, the doctor strongly demanded that William send Agnes to an asylum, but William refused, fearing damage to his family's reputation. Sugar also opposed sending Agnes to an asylum, because the conditions there at the time would destroy a woman completely. Moreover, she believed that Agnes's condition was not as severe as it seemed. From the recovered diaries, she realized that Agnes might simply fear the intimate touch of man, including the invasive examinations by doctors.
He places his hands on my belly, and the demon inside me lunges in rage and terror and then tears its way out of me.
This fear had been misdiagnosed as insanity by incompetent physicians. The maid also noticed that the mistress's condition was not as serious as the doctor claimed, so she secretly reduced the dosage of sedatives, allowing Agnes at least enough energy to sit up and read. But even this small act caused William's dissatisfaction. He did not allow Agnes to have the energy to do anything that might embarrass him, and even forbade her from attending the weekly Sunday church service. Agnes fell into despair once again, and her emotions collapsed. Unable to endure any longer, William finally set aside his pride and decided to send her to an asylum, because not long before, he had already begun an affair with a respectable aristocratic widow. The widow was charming and calculating, skilled in understanding people, and William quickly fell under her spell. Even growing cold toward Sugar, after deciding to send Agnes away, he committed another unforgivable act. It was something he had not dared to do since their wedding night. He believed himself to be gentle and patient enough, yet the suffocating and terrifying sensation reignited all of Agnes's fears. The trauma of the wedding night, combined with the repeated invasive examinations by doctors, intertwined into a nightmare, and her cries of pain echoed throughout the entire house, waking Sugar. After William fled, she heard faint cries for help. She saw Agnes crawling out like a dying animal. Sugar knew that Agnes had always seen her as an angel, yet she could not truly save her from suffering. Pain and guilt overwhelmed Sugar, and after intense inner struggle, she made a secret decision. In the middle of the night, she came to Agnes's bedside and woke her.
Drink this. Don't go back to sleep.
The cup contained medicine that would keep her awake, because only in this way could Agnes regain her strength and escape this prison. Agnes understood immediately. This must be the moment of rebirth. To mark this moment, she cut off her beautiful golden hair without hesitation. Though uneven, her face seemed to glow with a new light. Carrying the valuables Sugar had prepared for her, she staggered into the night. She turned back to bid farewell to Sugar, just like when they first met. Agnes made her way to the train station, intending to board the farthest train and then find a convent that would shelter women in distress, which was the path Sugar had planned for her. When the doctor came the next day to take her away, Agnes was already gone from the estate. He suspected Sugar, because she was the only one capable of such a plan, but Sugar remained calm and revealed nothing, leaving the doctor to rely only on psychological pressure. Yet if Agnes had stayed, she would have been worn down to death, so it was better to take the risk. Sugar believed she had done nothing wrong. That night, William drank himself into a stupor outside, and under the influence of alcohol, he lashed out at a street woman, calling Agnes insane.
Leave me alone! Leave me alone.
However, women on the streets would not tolerate such abuse, and in the next moment he was beaten. After being unconscious for a night, William returned home and learned that Agnes had disappeared. At that moment, he finally felt a trace of pity for his young wife. He nervously imagined that Agnes would be sold into a brothel and suffer unimaginable torment.
Nice little trade going in dying girls. Or perhaps you've forgotten.
Like the doctor, he suspected Sugar. He remembered that on the snowy night when they found Agnes, she had said her only friend had saved her, and at that time it had clearly been Sugar who found her first.
She was very disturbed. I merely escorted her back to the house.
Sugar's response remained flawless, leaving William with no choice but to dismiss his suspicions. Just a few days later, the police discovered a highly suspicious corpse. Although the face had been disfigured beyond recognition by eel bites, the hair color and clothing indicated someone of wealth and status. William only glanced from a distance before concluding that it must be his wife. Sugar also heard about the horrific condition from the driver, and she felt deeply saddened. Her emotions surged like a roller coaster.
There was nothing left to recognize. Except her hair. Those long blonde locks.
Shifting from sorrow to overwhelming joy, because she clearly remembered that Agnes had cut her hair short before leaving, she believed that Agnes must be alive somewhere. Holding on with strength, she decided to end the pregnancy herself. Using a mixture of zinc and borax poured into her body, this was a method commonly used by women in that era to deal with unwanted pregnancies. Although Sugar had already left that life behind, she did not dare to gamble on whether the child's father would give her a proper place. So rather than letting the child suffer in this world, she chose to stop the misfortune before it began. However, just as she was about to act, the father of the child came to see her. To her astonishment, William invited her to take a family portrait together.
That's all.
You, me, and Sophie.
Although Sugar could hardly believe it, taking a family photo clearly signaled the formation of a household. Even someone as rational as she was could not help but be swept away by joy. For the first time, she began to feel hope for the child. Since William had always regretted not having a son to inherit his business, how she wanted to tell him that the son he longed for might already be growing inside her. But her cautious nature turned the words on her lips into subtle hints.
You are a man in his prime, William.
I told you I would do anything for you.
She focused only on expressing herself, completely missing the unnatural look on William's face. Soon, William brought back the photographs, and Sugar eagerly wanted to see their picture together, but William regretfully told her that the photo had been ruined during development. Although she felt disappointed, such accidents were common at the time, so she did not dwell on it. Yet that very night, when she went into the study to look for documents, she found a package wrapped in brown paper on the table, and inside was the very photograph of the three of them, but the place where she had stood had been replaced with the face of William's wife, Agnes. In that instant, she understood that her resemblance to Agnes had only made her a temporary substitute. She mocked herself for being foolish enough to place the hope of her entire life on a man, and felt relieved that she had not revealed her pregnancy. She did not dare hesitate any longer, and immediately began preparing the mixture and forcing it into her body. But after waiting through the night, there was no reaction, and no sign that it had worked. She resorted to stronger methods, using peppermint oil and brewer's yeast. Yet to her despair, the effect was still limited, and her body remained unchanged. With no other choice, she went to the staircase, and the violent impact caused her to lose consciousness. But when the doctor examined her, he found that after falling down an entire flight of stairs, she had only sprained her ankle. The doctor had also discovered her pregnancy. She begged him not to tell anyone, as she could not afford to lose her job. Seeing her pitiful state, the doctor reluctantly agreed to keep it secret.
Remarkably well. Miss Sugar is extremely robust.
To prove her worth, she continued handling William's affairs with a limp, even managing the factory while leaning on crutches. She did not expect William to bring the aristocratic widow to tour the factory, clearly signaling that their relationship was progressing. Although she still felt pain, she no longer held any illusions about love. As long as she could remain by Sophie's side, she struggled up the stairs, only for Sophie to need the bathroom, forcing her to ask William for help. But William impatiently pointed out the direction and turned all his attention back to his new lover. Sugar had no choice but to limp back downstairs again. The repeated strain and exhaustion finally triggered a reaction in her body. As intense pain struck suddenly and violently, she barely managed to sit on the toilet, enduring the agony as something separated from her body, before collapsing weakly onto the floor. Sophie was terrified by the scene and immediately wanted to call for help, but this was something that could not be made known to others.
You have to help me.
At that moment, this young girl became her savior. Sugar believed the child was gone, and that she was finally free of any burden. What she did not know was that the doctor had not kept his promise, and had ultimately informed William of her pregnancy. Sugar wanted to explain that the child was already gone, but William immediately pronounced her fate. His daughter needed a respectable governess, and this became the perfect excuse. Before marrying his new lover, he had to clear away all complications around him. Sugar was thrown into complete panic. It was not William she could not let go of, but the thought of being separated from Sophie. She had already come to see Sophie as her closest family, and caring for her was like healing her own broken childhood. She wrote letter after letter to William, promising that if she could stay, she would remain invisible and never interfere with his remarriage. But William did not even read them. Sophie clearly could not bear to lose her either. The love she lacked from her parents had long been given to her by Sugar in abundance. She could live without her father, but not without Sugar. However, a new governess would soon arrive, leaving Sugar no choice but to ask Sophie to plead with William.
I want you to tell him how you feel about me. Do you understand? Do you understand?
She hoped that Sophie's dependence might soften him, but she underestimated his coldness. A daughter's needs could not compete with the importance of a beautiful new wife. He remained determined to drive Sugar away. As the child in her arms cried uncontrollably, Sugar's unease turned into anger.
How dare he do this? How dare he do this to my child?
Since she could not stay, she decided to take Sophie with her. Compared to such a father and future stepmother, she believed she could give Sophie a better life.
I thought we might go for an adventure outside today, Sophie. It's getting so stuffy in here.
Yes, miss.
The perceptive Sophie immediately understood her meaning, and she was more than willing to go with her. But before they could step out of the gate, the driver blocked their way. He had long harbored improper intentions toward Sugar, and whenever she was alone, he would pester her relentlessly. Sugar did not dare linger, and suggested speaking with him alone. The driver was overjoyed at the opportunity. Having long desired the boss's woman, what he did not know was that Sugar had grown up in harsh environments and knew many ways to protect herself. Soon, the driver's cries of pain echoed, while Sugar took Sophie and ran as fast as she could. On the way to the station, Sugar's manuscripts suddenly slipped from her hands and scattered everywhere. Picking them up would waste too much time, so she let those pages filled with pain drift away in the wind. Carrying her past with them, she would use fresh paper to write the future she truly desired. Meanwhile, William discovered that Sugar had taken Sophie, and assumed it was an act of revenge. Storming into a brothel in anger to look for her, he had never truly understood Sugar, and after all the effort she had made to escape that life, she would never return to degrade herself again. Failing to find her, William instead caused trouble and was beaten, finally leaving himself utterly alone.